Hi guys, this is Andrea from the Unwritten Histories blog, and today I have a video for you on how to use secondary source management software. A lot of people like to use more traditional methods like pen and paper or an Excel spreadsheet, but I like using one of the variety of different softwares that are available to help you with this. So a reference manager is kind of like the way a word processor is a kind of software that you use to write. A reference manager is the kind of software that you use to keep track of things that you've read. Think of it as your personal library on your computer. Now, there are a lot of different kinds of software that will allow you to do this. The most popular one tends to be Zotero, mostly because it's free. I really don't like the interface, and it just doesn't do what I want it to do, but it might be a really good option for you. There's also Mendeley, EndNote, there's a ton of these things. They all basically work in the same way. So even though I'm going to be speaking specifically about papers, a lot of this applies, you know, to whatever kind of software that you plan on using. So this is the website that you would go to access the Papers app. I'm using a Mac, that's why I'm calling it an app, but Papers can be used for Mac and Windows. It has a whole bunch of lists here about what kinds of functions it options. Now, the one downside to Papers is that it is not free. If you are a regular person, it's $80. If you are a student, it's $50. But I think that the functionality that it offers is worth it. Kind of my threshold for software like this is like under $100, and I think it's probably pretty reasonable. But like I said, Zotero is free and it's very popular, so that might be a better option for you. So I'm going to talk about how I use Papers today, and to keep track of sources, to keep track of what I have read, and also to find things later, which is, I think, the key point here. So I'm going to just open that application right now. So here is the main web page that you'd see. If you're just starting out with Papers, it's very simple, it's very intuitive to use. You can just download it and open it, and basically this is exactly what you're going to get. And it has three basic sort of screens you can see here, the screen, I should say, is divided into three sections. So the first section here is kind of like your card catalog, if you will. It contains the things that you might need to organize. I'll come back to that, don't worry. The section in the middle is going to contain your citations up here, and this is going to have your PDFs if you have any. And then on the right side, you have sort of your tabs here that keep track of the day-to-day information about the specific source that you are using. So there are two ways to import sources into Papers. You can do it manually, or you can do it by importing PDFs. So I'm going to do one manually to show you how it works. So if you go to File, New Paper, you can add any one of these kinds of sources, and it'll automatically format things. So I'm going to choose Book. Okay, so it's just created a new citation up here, adding it to the library that I already have on my website, or on the software, and it's empty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the right-hand side of the screen, and I'm going to start entering the information about the book. So I'm entering for Silence, the Untold Story of the Fight for Equality in the RCMP. And Bonnie Riley Schmidt, there we go. And I'm going to add the publisher, which is Caitlin Press, city, which is Half Moon Bay, BC, and the year we're published, 2015. Okay, and so now if I look back at the citation that's in the middle here, you can see that all of that information has been entered. So it's there, and that's great. So if you want to look at the actual citation itself, Right now we're on the little tab here that's the I, and that's the information. If you go to the one to the left, that's the overview. This is giving you the information about the actual citation or source itself. Now, it works pretty much the same way when you're importing PDFs. So the way that you would do that is going to File, Import, PDF Files. And here is taking me to, I like to call it my article dump. Basically, when I'm researching, I tend to download a lot of documents and sort through them later. That's just the way that my brain works. And so I tend to save the files temporarily to a folder on my desktop called the article dump. You can call it whatever you'd like. Place of sunshine and rainbows, the deepest, darkest pits of hell, however you feel about your secondary source research. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to import, and I'm going to import all of these PDFs at the same time. You can do them individually, and I'm going to click import. And now what Papers is doing is that it's taking those original PDFs, it's copying them and putting them into the Papers library. It's also reading those documents for the metadata. So in a lot of cases today, software or the PDFs come coded with metadata, which is kind of just like labels identifying information. And software like Papers can read that information and then automatically create your citations for you. It doesn't work for everyone. You can see here this particular article doesn't have any information. The older PDFs don't tend to have it, and some databases and journals are better than others. JSTOR is particularly bad. I'm not sure why. It just is. Okay, but if I go down one below, you can see here an article by Will Langford. And if we look on the right, we can see that all of our information is already entered here. So we don't have to worry about that. It's automatically in there. Now, if it wasn't, as is the case with this Keith Walden article, you can use the same method that you use to input these manually to input your information by going to the info icon over here and then adding in your information. Now, one thing that's really interesting and I think useful about Papers is that it organizes your PDFs for you. So what do I mean by that? If I go to, Preferences, you can see here that what Papers has done is taken that original PDF and copied it to the folder that contains the library app on my computer. It has relabeled that file and organized it in a particular way. So for example, this is how I have it set up for now. So it renames everything according to the journal or the source, the year, and the author. And then it's organized my files based on author, year, and then category. Now you can change these, you can do whatever you want. I think this makes it great because then you can find things, again, more easily through a regular search on your computer. And if you're working with other people, it makes it really easy to share things. Okay, so Papers does allow you to share with other people working. You can do that through the reading list. You can also sync this across multiple devices. So if you saw, my Papers library is saved in my Dropbox folder. So what that means is that I can use this Papers library no matter where I am in the world, as long as I have access to some kind of computer, phone, or tablet. It'll automatically all be there for me. And that is very useful. Now that we've sort of talked about how to put all of this information into Papers, it's important to understand or to know how to find things later. I think that that's kind of the thing that most academics tend to forget about, because we're kind of like magpies and we just want to collect everything, or maybe squirrels is better, because we're not all collecting shiny things. So we like to hoard our documents, and being historians, we're often working with a very large number of sources. And it doesn't matter how smart you are, you will never be able to remember absolutely everything. It just doesn't work. So for me, there are several methods that I use to keep track of where things are, and I do this through Papers. So if we're back on our sort of original tab, let's go to something within citation. we're back on our original tab and we're on the overview over here on the right hand side of the screen. If you go down a little bit further, you see that there's organization. Now you have the option to flag things. You have the option to color code them, which is always fun. Colors, good. You can rate from awesome to wanted to stab my eyes out, or whatever your ranking method is. Now the two that I find the most useful are right here, so add keywords and add to collection. Keywords is the word that Papers uses to refer to tags. And I think tagging is really the most important tool that I use for keeping track of things. So these are just words that I associate with a particular article. And I have them inputted so that I can search for things later. So for example, if I'm dealing with this Will Langford article, I can just start inputting tags like Manitoba, say 1950s, 1960s, Indigenous history. That's good enough for now. So these tags have been added to this document. There are a number of other documents with some of these tags, and you can search through them. So if you take your cursor and you go to the top of your screen, you can see that there are 6 icons up here. Okay, the first page that we were on was this sort of magnifying glass. This is a tool for searching. You can search online. The little file box is your library itself. Then we also have the star that I'll come back to in 1 second. Then you have the little person. This allows you to search by author, which is great. The next one, the little book here, allows you to search by journal article or source. Okay, so all of the articles that are published in any particular subject or any particular journal are all there for you to keep track of. When it comes to the tags, you want the little star, and the star is going to give you the option to search keywords. So you can see over here on the left hand side of the screen all of the keywords that I have already inputted into my computer and to my library. So I can click on any one of them and it will pull up any of the articles that I have associated with those keywords. So here's decolonization, and Adam Barker and his wife Emma Battelle are awesome. Anyways, so you can search manually by looking for the keyword that you want, or you can even just start typing it in the search like that, and it will pull up all of the keywords that match, which makes it really easy to find things again later. This is also how you would do searches if you wanted to look for things that were flagged or not flagged, things that are color-coded. I don't have anything color-coded, or rankings. Okay, now if we go back to our screen that we had before, collections is the method that Papers has for keeping track of reading lists. So if we go to the left-hand side of the screen, you can see here that I have a couple of collections. So these are basically folders that I created that store documents that are all in a particular subject that I want to keep track of. So here's one for pedagogy. This was another presentation that I was working on. And everything that I wanted to read, anything that was associated with this particular presentation, I put into this folder so I can keep track of it. You can also use smart folders. So that's the one with the little gear here. And you can set these up so that it will automatically add any paper or source that has a particular tag, that has a particular word in the title, anything you want like this. So these are 2 really good options. I think the sort of manual ones are really great for when you're working on articles, and the other ones are really good for keeping track of everything that you have on a particular topic. I also like to create a to read folder right here, and that is just something where I put, or the label that I give to anything that I have not read but really want to read, or it's kind of like my Andrea, read this soon. This is important. This is useful. You don't have to use that method. You do have the option of marking things as read or not read, but that's the method that I like to use. And the way that you mark it as not read is if you go back to the original screen, to the little I over here, scroll all the way down to the bottom, you can set the status as unread. And what that basically does is add a little dot next to the citation in the middle, saying that you have not read this article. Okay, now the last thing that I'm going to talk about is, for me, what really makes papers stand out, and that's its note functionality. So what I mean by that is you have the option to add notes and highlights to this document. So you can add things in manually. So example, there we go. And you can also highlight or select things with your cursor. So let's see the abstract right there. If I highlight or select that, right click and then put highlight selection, it has automatically added that section that I've highlighted to the notes bar up here. So why do I think this is so important? If you're like me, when you're usually working on something, you might have a whole bunch of sources open and you've taken notes from all of those different sources in one document. And usually you tend to close the PDFs afterwards and you're just working from that one document with all of the notes. Now, depending on how organized you are, you may keep track of exactly what comes from what, and you may be able to put that information into tags or the title of the documents. But for me personally, when it goes into one of those Word documents, unless I'm working on that particular topic, it disappears from my head. I can sometimes remember things that I think are useful, but I can never figure out where they come from. And one thing that I was just looking for was a way to keep the notes together with the actual PDF and the citation all in one place. So that's what I really like about Papers, is that it offers me that ability. Now the notes can also be exported as Word documents, or you can sort of copy paste. But this means that you always have preserved the notes that you've taken for any given source. So I hope that this has been a helpful video for you. Like I said, this is the method that I use. It may not work well for you, but you know, everybody has their own method of working, and it just takes time to figure out what works best. So if you liked this video and would like to see more blog posts in this format, please let me know in the comments below, on Facebook at Unwritten Histories, or on Twitter at Unwritten Histories. Let me know what you thought. I'd love to hear your opinions. Yes, I do sound like this in real life. My students make fun of me and call me Minnie Mouse, because, you know, self-explanatory. Don't forget to check back on Sunday for another edition of the Canadian History Roundup. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.